course in comparative education allows our graduate students to examine schools in Florence and in Rome. We visit elementary and middle school, and we visit public schools. In addition, we make sure that we go to a Pestalozzi school, and we've also gone to Montessori. They are allowed to talk with students and visit with them as well as the teachers so that they can learn about what is going on in their schools, what their curriculum is like, how they determine the strategies they're going to use, and how they reach the children.
One of the exciting adventures we have in the schools in Italy is we get to see different kinds of educational opportunities. In these settings, we see everything from lessons being taught, to us getting to teach a lesson, to even students actually singing, sometimes in Italian, sometimes in English, but always in a very rewarding way for us.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about visiting the schools in Italy was seeing the different types of schools. We went to a very traditional Montessori school, and we also went to a Pestalozzi school. And the Pestalozzi school is based on traditional Montessori, but they're not afraid to change the techniques that they use to meet what their kids' best need. So you would see some typical Montessori things, but there's also some different types of pedagogy that you see in the classrooms.
What I thought was really interesting is comparing the testing at the end of the year to our testing. So in the testing in Italy, they give students an opportunity to not only do a formal exam, but also a chance to have a creative project.
I love going to the public schools in Italy and visiting the middle schools there. I was able to sit into a few math classes and a few English classes, and I just love being able to talk to the students and learn from them. And they asked me a lot of questions about living in Texas, which is really fun.
What I loved about coming to Italy was going to Montessori schools in the place where Montessori schools were actually started. And I've seen Montessori schools in Waco, and to compare that to Italy was really fascinating. Here in Italy, they do everything very traditionally, and I got to see kids just being kids, not standing in rows, walking in lines, but being free to explore and create knowledge for themselves.
Something that I've learned that's different in Italian schools than American schools is that art's not only a part of their culture, but they integrate it into everything that they do. So when they're teaching lessons, they use it as reinforcement. And I think that's something I've taken away and really want to implement into my future classroom.
While the primary reason for having the course and coming to Italy is to study education in Italy, it's also very important for them to experience the culture, the art, and the history in this area. And that way they actually have an extended experience that they can take back with them. This will actually help them in their own teaching because they've actually firsthand experienced Rome, Florence, and even Venice.
The question is, how much gold leaf is there in the world? I think we've seen most of it. We've seen churches, we've seen statues, we've seen the paintings that our students have seen in their textbooks their entire educational experience.
What I thought the best thing to see was going to the Sistine Chapel, and I got to actually see the Last Judgment painted by Michelangelo, and I was just in awe to get to see something that I have studied and seen for so many years.
The Eternal City is definitely a spot everybody wants to visit. The ruins of the Colosseum and the Palatine Forum are places that people really enjoy visiting. My personal favorite is the Pantheon. We think our students need to see those as well as visit the Vatican, where on Wednesday they can actually see the Pope prior to going through the Vatican Museum.
I think my favorite sightseeing thing about Italy was getting to see all the different types of cities. We saw, the old parts of Rome, the bridges and the canals in Venice, the beautiful scenery and lands of Tuscany.
I've said many times, if there's one city in the world I could live in, it's Florence. The beautiful buildings with the terracotta roofs, the Ponte Vecchio, Uffizi Art Gallery, David, all of the things that make up a fabulously wealthy city. One afternoon we get away from the city and go out into the Tuscany Valley. We get to see the vineyards and the olive groves.
So my favorite sightseeing here in Italy has actually been sightseeing throughout Tuscany and the little towns throughout there. They just have very beautiful scenery and really cool buildings and little cafes and nooks to go find.
If you've never been to a city that's filled with water, you need to go to Venice. It is truly an unusual place. No other city in the world is like it, where we get on moving subways on water, go to St. Mark's Square, see the Doge Palace.
My favorite sightseeing experience was going to Venice because I've never been there before, and I loved looking at all of the canals and taking a gondola ride, which is really fun.
My favorite place in Italy was Murano, and that's actually where they make glass here. I think that was my favorite part because it was just so laid back, it was so beautiful. There was just no business to that town.
Thank goodness we had an opportunity to walk between 12 and 15 miles a day. Otherwise, we would have come back a different size. We learned that we love pasta, pizza, macaroons, but for most of us, gelato was the one that hit us every night. We had to have some before we went in. The graduate class in comparative education is much more than just a trip to Italy. It is an opportunity for students to meet people, to meet students and teachers, and to see schools that they've not seen in the United States. So our students get to see a lot of variety in the kinds of educational experiences they get to encounter during our 2 weeks in Italy.